Are you that kind of person? Just a tiny thing, replying to a message. Other people might get it done in a few seconds, but you? You need 10 minutes, maybe even half an hour. You type something, then delete it. Type again, delete again. You keep overthinking. Does this word sound too blunt? Will that meme make them uncomfortable? If I say it like this, will they think I'm bragging? Or complaining? If I add a little filler word, will it come off as too eager to please? You agonize over it for so long, and the other person might not even bother to read it, let alone reply. Is this how you live, too? If that last paragraph made you feel like I've got hidden cameras in your home, then congratulations, we're the same kind. And this torment goes far beyond just replying to messages. It seeps into every corner of your life. That dinner you had no desire to attend, yet agreed to with a smile. That project you were fully capable of handling, but didn't dare to raise your hand for. That painful relationship you knew was wrong, yet couldn't bring yourself to end. That no caught in your throat that you never managed to say. We dress this state up as grace or thoughtfulness, but deep down, we all know it's an illness, a terminal one called self-depletion. The immense energy of your life is slowly drained away by these countless small, unnecessary inner battles. Why do we crave others' approval so deeply, and how does this craving trap us like an invisible prison? In the upcoming video, I'll help you break free from the grip of others' opinions at its very root. You'll come to understand that living for yourself isn't selfish. It's the highest form of responsibility you can take for your own life. So please, give me a bit of your time, and give yourself a real chance. Your life shouldn't be wasted on pointless inner struggles. 1. Sit down and separate the tasks. What's yours is yours, and what's mine is mine. Let's start by answering a fundamental question. Why can a single glance or a simple comment from someone else so easily stir our emotions, even influence our decisions? The reason we often feel overwhelmed in life is that we fail to distinguish between what is my task and what is someone else's task. In Adlerian psychology, there is a key concept known as task separation. It's like a sharp scalpel that can swiftly cut through the confusion and entanglement of our interpersonal struggles. What does that mean? Simply put, it involves determining who will ultimately bear the consequences of a given situation. Whoever bears the consequences, that's whose task it is. The career you choose and the life path you follow. Ultimately, you are the one who must face the consequences of those choices. Therefore, how to choose your life is your task. Your parents want you to take the civil service exam because they believe it offers stability and respectability. That's their expectation, their perspective, it's their issue. They can give you advice, but they can't make decisions for you, and they certainly can't bear the consequences on your behalf. If you give up what you truly want to do just to meet their expectations, then for the next few decades, the one feeling trapped and miserable every day in a job you dislike will be you, not them. Likewise, whether others like you or how they judge you is their issue, not yours. You can't control other people's thoughts and emotions. The only thing you can do is be yourself and express yourself sincerely. How others respond to your signals, whether with appreciation, envy, dislike, or indifference, is a reflection of their own values and life experiences. That's their emotional burden to manage. It's their issue. One common mistake we often make is getting involved in other people's issues and allowing others to get involved in ours. For example, you take on work that isn't yours because you're worried a colleague might not like you. By doing so, you've taken over the task of how your colleague completes their work, which is supposed to be their responsibility. At the same time, because you're afraid of being disliked, you've allowed them to interfere with how you manage your own time and energy, which should be entirely your own concern. What's the result? You end up physically and mentally drained, while the other person may just take your efforts for granted. Think about the classic movie The Truman Show. The protagonist, Truman, lives inside a massive film set, surrounded by people. His parents, wife, and friends, who are all actors. They all love him and mean well, guiding him to live a safe, stable, and predictable life. This so-called "for his own good" is the narrative they impose on Truman. Whenever he shows a desire to leave, they manipulate him with family, love, and fear, telling him the outside world is dangerous. His life is tightly controlled by the agendas of others. Even at the very end, when he chooses to walk toward the door leading to the unknown world, the show's creator, the director who plays the role of God, makes one last attempt to persuade and threaten him. And what is Truman's final response? He simply bows, then walks out with unwavering resolve. That moment, he achieved the most complete separation of tasks. You want me to stay here and live the life you've planned for me? That's your task. But I choose to live my own life, for better or worse. That's my task. Returning others' tasks to them and taking responsibility for your own. That is where freedom begins. So, the first and most crucial step in gaining the courage to be disliked is to put the separation of tasks into practice. When you feel anxious, troubled, or trapped by relationships, ask yourself one question: who will ultimately bear the direct consequences of this matter? If it's someone else, then return control to them. If it's you, then summon the courage to make your own choice and take full responsibility for it. It's hard, but it's the only path to true freedom. 2. Your value is defined by you, not by others' approval. Sure, maybe you've grasped the idea of separating tasks and have logically told yourself, don't care about what others think. But why does it still feel like a stab to the heart when negative comments come your way? Why do we still instinctively crave likes and validation? It's because the anchor of our self-worth isn't grounded in our own harbor, but tossed into the stormy seas of others' opinions. Each of us has an inner scale that measures how good I am. Where you place the weight on this scale, your standard of value, determines who holds the power over your emotions: joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness. Most people live in a state of external value anchoring. Their weight lies in others' opinions, societal standards, and conventional definitions of success. A single compliment from their boss can brighten their entire day. A disapproving glance from their partner can keep them awake all night. The number of likes on social media directly defines the worth of a post. Their emotions rise and fall like a roller coaster, entirely driven by external circumstances. They live in the reactions of others, like actors constantly waiting for applause. Without it, they feel worthless. Those who truly have the courage to be disliked have established an internal value anchor. Their guiding weights are their own principles, passions, and standards. Their sense of self-worth comes from questions like, am I staying true to myself? Am I better today than I was yesterday? And am I doing something I believe is meaningful? Their lives are governed by an internal, stable scoring system. When others criticize them, they listen and reflect. If the feedback is constructive, they take it in and make improvements, because it contributes to raising their internal score. But if the criticism is nothing more than baseless attacks or prejudice, they don't feel their self-worth is affected. Because their value anchor says, my worth is determined by the actions I take and the beliefs I uphold, not by your words. Let's look at Van Gogh in art history. During his lifetime, he didn't sell a single painting. He was completely rejected and ridiculed by the mainstream art world and the general public. If Van Gogh had anchored his sense of worth externally, he might have given up entirely after his first rejection or started painting trendy, crowd-pleasing works to cater to the market. But he didn't. His internal value anchor was deeply rooted in his passion and unwavering dedication to art. He painted not to gain others' approval, but to express the world he saw, burning like fire, through his own eyes. In a letter to his brother Theo, he wrote, "The paintings in my mind are more beautiful than those I paint with my hands." His sense of self-worth came from his dialogue with art, from every attempt to pour the swirling colors and emotions within him onto the canvas. The world's rejection and lack of recognition were painful, but they could not destroy his core sense of value. He painted for himself and lived for art. In the end, history gave him the fairest judgment. But the point is, even without the admiration of future generations, His life had already been fulfilled in his own eyes, because he stayed true to himself. As Nietzsche said, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. Van Gogh's strength came precisely from his unwavering internal sense of values. So, the second key to having the courage to be disliked is to rebuild your value anchoring system. Starting today, try to take back the scale by which you measure yourself from the hands of others. Ask yourself each day, am I doing this because it aligns with my own values or just to please others? Begin living according to your own standards and celebrating your own progress. Your worth is your own, sacred and inviolable. 3. Break the illusion of false communities. True belonging comes from the real you. At this point, you might feel a new kind of confusion. I don't want to stand out too much. I need friends. I need a sense of belonging. If I always practice separating tasks and always rely on internal anchoring, will I become reclusive, selfish, and eventually be isolated by everyone? This is a very common misunderstanding. Our fear of being disliked is essentially a fear of being rejected by the community we belong to, such as our family, workplace, or circle of friends. But have you ever stopped to consider whether the community you're working so hard to maintain is even real? Adler introduced a concept called the sense of community. It's the feeling of, I belong here and I make a contribution here, which is a key source of happiness. However, many times, what we're part of is actually a false community. What is a false community? It is built on compliance and exchange, rather than authenticity and acceptance. In this kind of relationship, you have to hide parts of your true self and wear the mask of a good colleague, a good child, or a good friend to meet the group's expectations and secure your place at the table. You're afraid to voice dissenting opinions for fear of being excluded. You're afraid to say no because you worry others will stop liking you. You trade self-suppression for entry into this seemingly harmonious circle. But this harmony is incredibly fragile. It's a transaction that says, if you don't meet my expectations, I'll take back my approval. One day, when you're exhausted and just want to be yourself, to speak your mind, the so-called love and acceptance of that community might shatter in an instant. You'll come to realize that what they truly liked was the version of you wearing a mask, the one who served their needs, not the real you. A genuine community is built on authenticity. It embraces differences and respects individuality. In such a space, you're free to voice dissenting opinions, to have flaws, to be imperfect, and still be accepted, simply because your existence has inherent value. These are the kinds of relationships that are resilient, that truly nourish you and give you a lasting sense of belonging. This reminds me of a Japanese drama called Nagi's Long Vacation. The female protagonist, Oshima Nagi, is a classic people-pleaser. She's highly attuned to others' emotions and spends each day trying to read the moods of her coworkers and boyfriend, doing everything she can to accommodate everyone. She spends an hour every morning straightening her naturally curly hair just to fit in with the workplace atmosphere. She believed she had harmonious relationships and a perfect romance. However, by chance, she overhears her coworkers mocking her behind her back, saying she's convenient to have around. She also hears her boyfriend telling someone that he's only with her because they're compatible in certain ways, but that he doesn't love her at all. The community she had worked so hard to maintain crumbles in an instant, and she realizes it was all an illusion. The emotional blow is so devastating that she faints. After waking up, she made a decision to quit her job, move away, cut off all contact, and set out with nothing but a quilt to live a life of leisure. Along the way, she stopped straightening her hair and embraced her natural curls, a symbol of her true self. She began learning how to say no and how to express her genuine feelings. She met new neighbors, an elderly woman who seemed eccentric and a young man who appeared carefree. Through her cautious interactions with them, she experienced for the first time that even if she wasn't perfect, even if she was difficult, she could still be cared for and accepted. This was the authentic community she had been searching for. She no longer had to survive by reading between the lines. she could finally breathe freely. So, the third realization in gaining the courage to be disliked is to consciously break free from the illusion of a false community. You must understand that relationships built on self-sacrifice are not only unsustainable but also toxic. They slowly drain your energy and erode your sense of self. Have the courage to take off the mask and be your true self. Yes, you may lose some people, but those who leave because of the real you never truly loved you to begin with. The ones who stay, and those who are drawn to your authentic self, are the ones who will form your true community, the one that genuinely nourishes your life. 4. Your present is not determined by your past. At this point, you may hear a voice deep inside protesting, "I understand all of this, but I just can't do it. This is just my personality. This is how I was raised. My past experiences left me with emotional scars." We always seem to find countless reasons from the past to justify why we're afraid to change. But Adlerian psychology offers a groundbreaking perspective. Your present is not determined by your past, but by your goals. This brings us to the difference between causal reasoning and teleological reasoning. 1. Causal reasoning is the thought pattern most of us are used to. For example, I have social anxiety because I embarrassed myself in front of the whole class when I was a child. I don't dare to say no to others because my parents always taught me to be considerate from a young age. It emphasizes that the past is the cause and the present is the effect. The biggest problem with this way of thinking is that it can trap you in a sense of helpless fatalism. Since the past is what caused your current situation, and the past can't be changed, then your present circumstances must be unchangeable too. You end up placing yourself in the role of a victim. In contrast, teleology takes the opposite view. It suggests that you didn't become who you are now because of some past cause. Rather, in order to achieve a certain goal in the present, you've chosen a particular cause from your many past experiences to use as an excuse. That might sound a bit abstract, so here's an example. A person who is afraid to go outside and locks themselves in their room might explain it through causal theory by saying, because they were traumatized in the past, they're now afraid to go out. From a teleological perspective, the explanation is that he has a goal of not wanting to go outside. To rationalize this goal, he uses past trauma as an excuse. What might his real goal be? Perhaps it's wanting to receive more attention and care from his parents, or avoiding the competition and potential failures he might face in society. As long as he stays inside, this goal can be fulfilled. Similarly, your fear of saying no to others, from a teleological point of view, isn't due to any flaw in your parents' upbringing, but rather because you have a goal of not wanting to be disliked by anyone, and wanting to maintain a superficially harmonious relationship with others. To achieve this goal, you chose the behavior of not refusing, and used your parents' upbringing as the perfect justification for that choice. This is very common in psychological counseling. Many people come to therapy and spend a great deal of time talking about their childhood traumas and issues with their family of origin. This is causal thinking. They hope the therapist can fix their past. But a skilled therapist will guide them toward teleological thinking. For example, the therapist might ask, "You've been holding on to this victim role. What benefits has that role brought you?" This question is often a wake-up call. The client may realize for the first time that identifying as a victim allows them to avoid taking responsibility, to feel justified in not making changes, and to elicit sympathy from others. He clings to the pain of the past because he has a purpose, a desire to avoid taking responsibility for his life. Recognizing this is painful, but it's also the beginning of liberation. It means you have a choice. Your current state isn't an unchangeable result, but a purpose you can choose again. You can choose to stay in the comfort zone of being a victim, or you can choose a new purpose, such as, "I want to live a free and authentic life." When your purpose changes, you'll find that those so-called reasons from the past can no longer hold you back. Therefore, the fourth cognitive shift in gaining the courage to be disliked is to replace reason-based thinking with purpose-based thinking. Stop blaming your fears and hesitation on an unchangeable past. Have the courage to take an honest look at yourself. What purpose am I trying to fulfill by maintaining the status quo? What benefit am I afraid of losing that makes me resist change? When you can clearly see your own purpose, you reclaim control over your life. You are no longer a prisoner of the past, but the creator of your future. 5. Embracing imperfection and having the courage to accept being ordinary is true strength. When we talk about living for ourselves, many people picture someone who is highly successful, radiant, and completely unfazed by others' opinions. A powerful, independent woman or man. But this image often becomes yet another obstacle to taking action. We think, once I'm good enough, strong enough, then I'll have the courage to be disliked. But the truth is quite the opposite. The desire to be special is, in itself, just another form of living for others. You strive to be exceptionally good to earn praise and approval. You act out and try to be exceptionally bad to gain attention. Both of these pursuits are, at their core, about competing with others' judgments. They represent attempts to find a special point along the same axis in order to validate one's existence. True freedom, however, lies in the courage to embrace being ordinary. This ordinary doesn't mean mediocre or lacking ambition. It means having a calm and balanced mindset. It means accepting that you are just a regular person, with strengths but also many flaws, with moments of joy and energy, but also times of deep vulnerability. You no longer need to prove your worth by being different. Why is accepting ordinariness so important? Because the illusion of perfection is the biggest excuse we use to avoid taking action. I want to start a business, but I'll wait until I have the perfect plan. I want to express my love, but I'll wait for a more romantic moment. I want to live as my true self, but I'll wait until I'm stronger and flawless. The result is endless waiting, endless preparation, and never actually starting. The courage to embrace the ordinary means allowing yourself to begin imperfectly. Allowing yourself to stumble over your words the first time you say no to someone. Allowing yourself to feel scared and regretful after speaking your truth. Allowing yourself to mess things up when trying something new. Because you understand that imperfection is a natural part of life, and growth is a continuous process of making mistakes and learning from them. Psychologist Brené Brown, in her TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability, shared insights from her years of research on people who live wholeheartedly. She found that those who live the happiest and most authentic lives share one common trait. They all have the courage to embrace vulnerability. Rather than striving to be invulnerable, they dare to reveal their imperfections. They believe that what makes them vulnerable is also what makes them beautiful. For example, loving someone inherently involves the risk of getting hurt. Trying something new inherently involves the risk of failure. But they are willing to take these risks because they understand that avoiding them means missing out on the opportunity to experience deep love and personal growth. They don't wait until they're perfect to love or create. They throw themselves into life with all their ordinary qualities, awkwardly, sincerely. This ties directly into our topic today, the courage to be disliked, which, at its core, is also the courage to embrace vulnerability. Because when you choose to be authentic, you open yourself up to the risk of being misunderstood, rejected, or disliked. It's only by accepting the possibility of imperfection that you can find true inner peace and freedom. 5. So, the fifth mindset for cultivating the courage to be disliked is having the courage to be at peace with being ordinary. Stop waiting for that perfect version of yourself to show up. True strength isn't about how exceptional you are, but about having the courage to accept your ordinariness and live boldly with it. From this moment on, give yourself permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes. Your worth doesn't lie in how special you are, but in how genuine you are. 6. Setting boundaries and saying no with kindness and firmness is the highest form of self-love. Earlier, we talked about mindset, awareness, and philosophy. Now, we need to return to the most practical and concrete level of action. After learning all these principles, what should you do when you go to work tomorrow and a colleague asks you to take on extra tasks? How should you respond when relatives start interfering in your personal life? All courage to be disliked ultimately comes down to one concrete action: setting boundaries. Boundaries are the psychological and emotional territory you establish for yourself as an independent individual. They let others, and yourself, know, this is my space, my time, my emotions, my responsibility. You have your territory, and I respect that. I have mine, and I ask that you respect it as well. People who don't know how to set boundaries are like a yard without a fence. Anyone can walk in, trample your lawn, and pick your fruit. You're constantly being drained, yet powerless to resist, because you don't even know where the gate is. Learning to say no is the first and most crucial step in setting boundaries. This no isn't a hostile confrontation, but a gentle and firm affirmation of self. It's not intended to hurt others, but to protect oneself. Behind every healthy no is an even more meaningful yes. When I say no to unreasonable demands, I'm saying yes to my own energy, time, and core priorities. When I say no to others' excessive interference, I'm saying yes to my right to make my own life choices and to my independent identity. Many people are afraid to say no because they equate turning down a request with rejecting the person who made it. This isn't right. Healthy boundaries are actually the foundation of strong interpersonal relationships. They make relationships clearer, more transparent, and rooted in mutual respect. People who get angry or walk away when you set boundaries never truly respected you. They were just taking advantage of your lack of boundaries. Let's look at a few specific, ready-to-use scripts to practice setting boundaries. Scenario 1. A colleague asks you to help with work that's actually their responsibility. The old boundary-less me would say, sure, no problem. But what I was really thinking was, this is so frustrating. I can't even finish my own work. The new boundary-setting me would say directly, sorry, I'm currently swamped with urgent tasks and probably won't be able to help you. Gently state the facts without emotion, or take it a step further and say, this is your task, and I trust you're capable of handling it. If you run into any specific technical challenges, we can brainstorm some ideas together when you have time. This kind of response both sets a boundary and conveys kindness and support. 2. Relatives press you about your privacy at a gathering and offer all kinds of advice. The old, boundary-less version of me might have just smiled awkwardly and given vague answers, while feeling extremely uncomfortable inside. The new, boundary-setting version of me would smile and say, thank you for your concern. I have a plan for this. Let's talk about something more fun. This is a way to acknowledge the other person's good intentions, while clearly stating that you don't want to continue the conversation and proactively steering it in a different direction. Or, to be more direct, this is a personal matter, and I'm not ready to talk about it right now. Thanks for understanding. This phrasing is firm yet polite. You see, setting boundaries doesn't mean you have to become cold or unfeeling. On the contrary, it requires you to have a clearer sense of who you are, to respect yourself more, and to engage with others in a mature way. It's a skill that takes practice. At first, it may feel uncomfortable or even make you feel guilty. That's completely normal. But every successful attempt helps to strengthen your inner resilience. So, the final and most crucial step in putting all these ideas into action is to intentionally practice setting boundaries. This is your declaration to live for yourself, a daily practice of putting the courage to be disliked into action. Start with the smallest things and learn to say no with both kindness and firmness. Every successful refusal is a vote for your inner freedom and strength. This is the highest form of self-love. Alright, my friend, let's recap today's video. We talked about task separation, helping you return burdens that were never yours to carry. We discussed value anchoring, empowering you to reclaim the right to define yourself. We burst the bubble of the false community, encouraging you to seek genuine belonging. We used the perspective of teleology to give you the power to rewrite your life. We embraced the courage to accept being ordinary, allowing you to release the burden of perfection and move forward with ease. Finally, we learned to use the tool of setting boundaries to defend your personal space in everyday life. These 6 methods are closely interconnected, forming a complete system that empowers you to break free from the judgment of others and live as your authentic self. Remember, having the courage to be disliked is not about intentionally making enemies or becoming cold and selfish. On the contrary, it's about cultivating a strong, unwavering core within yourself as you engage with the world. Only when you no longer depend on pleasing others to feel a sense of worth can you truly, selflessly, and wholeheartedly love others and build healthy, sincere relationships. So-called good people often live according to others' standards, incomplete and fragmented. A whole person, on the other hand, accepts every part of themselves, the light and the dark, kindness and anger, sociability and solitude. He no longer tried to erase any part of himself to fit into the world. Instead, he embraced his whole self and lived bravely and authentically between heaven and earth. This is a higher form of kindness, a more powerful kind of love, because it's rooted in freedom, not fear. Finally, I'd like to close today's talk with a quote from the great psychologist Carl Jung, which perfectly captures the essence of everything we've discussed. I would rather be whole than good. I hope today's video was helpful to you. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.